Three boys scrambled down the rocky cut behind the warehouses off Harvard Avenue, looking for a place to explore where adults didn't watch them. The ravine smelled like damp leaves and motor oil, the kind of forgotten strip of land that sat between the neighborhood and the industrial road. One of them saw the shoes first, then the yellow shirt, then the stillness that didn't belong to a person. They ran for help, and by the time police climbed down into the gully, the body had a name. Kurt Sova, 17 years old, a high school kid from Newburgh Heights. He had been missing for 5 days. The distance was the first thing that didn't make sense. Kurt lay in that ravine only a short walk from the duplex where he'd last been seen at a party, and close enough to be described in reports as hundreds of yards, or even a few hundred feet, from the house. His family had searched the area while he was gone, yet the medical findings would say he hadn't been dead for 5 days. He'd been dead for roughly a day to a day and a half. If that was true, Kurt had been alive somewhere while his mother papered the neighborhood with flyers and his father drove the blocks calling his son's name. Kurt lived with his parents, Dorothy and Ken Sova, in a quiet Cleveland area suburb where families expected routines. Kurt was known as the kind of kid who came home. If he was going to be late, his parents expected to know where he was. That Friday afternoon, he left the house and met up with a friend a block away. They were headed to a party at a duplex on Harvard Avenue. It wasn't some advertised event with invitations. It was the loose kind of gathering that formed when teenagers found a place to be, a few rooms to fill, and music loud enough to drown out consequences. Inside the duplex, people drifted through rooms, music pushing against thin walls. Kurt drank that night, according to accounts shared later, though people who knew him said heavy drinking didn't fit him. At some point, he became sick. His friend said Kurt needed air, so they took him outside. The night was cold enough that a jacket mattered. The friend said he went upstairs to get Kurt's jacket, and, for a moment, Kurt was left outside, leaning against a fence. When the friend came back, Kurt was gone. By Saturday morning, Kurt still wasn't home. Dorothy felt it immediately as wrong. Ken started searching the neighborhood. They called friends, drove streets, checked places teens might crash. Nothing. On Sunday, they filed a missing person report with police. Dorothy kept moving, stapling and taping flyers, knocking on doors, searching ravines and schoolyards, even looking through dumpsters. Every hour that passed made the silence heavier because there was no call, no sighting, no proof Kurt was safe. That same Sunday, Dorothy learned about the party. She went to the duplex looking for answers and was told, at first, that there hadn't been any party at all. But there were signs someone had gathered there. A pizza delivery man would later say he had delivered to the duplex that night, a small, ordinary detail that undercut the denial. When Dorothy pressed again, the story shifted. Yes, Kurt had been there. Yes, people had come through. More than a dozen, some older than Kurt. Many people he didn't know. The party house was close, and that closeness made it feel like the answers should be close too. Yet every version of the end of the night seemed to stop at the same point. Kurt outside, alone, and then vanished. 5 days after Kurt left home, those boys found him in the ravine. Police noted minor scrapes and bruises, but no obvious injuries that explained death. Kurt was barefoot. One shoe, his left, was recovered nearby, wedged among rocks. The other shoe was never found. Investigators searched for signs of a struggle, for anything that would draw a straight line from a party to a body in a gully. The autopsy could not pinpoint a single definitive cause of death. The timing estimate, though, added fuel to every question the family already carried. Investigators noted how exposed the location was. The ravine sat behind industrial buildings along Harvard, an in-between place locals cut through and kids treated like a hidden playground. A lieutenant with the Newburgh Heights Police Department said publicly it was their belief Kurt had been dumped there, and that whoever did it knew the area well enough to count on someone finding him. At the coroner's office, Chief Deputy Coroner Dr. Lester Adelson said the exact cause of death could not be determined. The timing estimate, however, pointed to Kurt being dead for only about a day to a day and a half, a window that didn't match the 5 days his parents had been searching. That gap changed the story from a disappearance into a mystery of movement. It suggested Kurt did not simply stumble away from the party and die unseen in the ravine that same night. If he had been alive for days after leaving the duplex, then someone had either sheltered him, held him, or encountered him and failed to help. It also raised another possibility investigators voiced openly, that Kurt's body had been placed in the ravine after death, in a spot where kids wandered and where, inevitably, someone would find him. For the Sova family, the disputes were not academic. They were personal, a constant reopening of the last time Kurt was seen. Dorothy returned again and again to the details she could hold on to: the fence, the jacket, the shifting stories, the shoe that never turned up. Over the years, the case drew wider attention, including national coverage that kept Kurt's name in circulation long after the flyers had faded. Decades later, authorities still listed Kurt's death as an unsolved homicide, with an incident window spanning the night he disappeared through the day he was found. Investigators revisited the file, and police partnered with outside help, including university students, as they tried to shake loose leads that had dried up. Local reporting continued to note that Kurt's blood alcohol level was not believed to be high enough by itself to explain his death, and that officials remained divided on what most likely happened. Some leaned toward an accidental death and a chain of bad decisions. Others believed something darker occurred around that party and the missing days afterward. Kurt's brother, Kevin, grew up with a date on the calendar that never stopped hurting. The family searched near the ravine during the days Kurt was missing, close enough to the place where he would be found that it felt cruel in hindsight. That detail, like the medical timing estimate, kept sharpening the same question. If Kurt wasn't there when they searched, when did he get there? The case stayed alive because it contained too many tight circles that never closed. A teenager left for a party near home. He didn't come back. His family did what families do, fast and frantic. Police found him close to where he was last seen, yet not in a way that fit the missing days. The ravine became more than a place on a map. It became the last page of a story with the middle torn out. Somebody, somewhere, knew what happened in the hours after Kurt stepped outside. Whether it was a moment of cruelty, a moment of fear, or a moment when help should have been called and wasn't, the answers remained locked behind the people who were there. And in Newburgh Heights, the distance between a party house and a ravine stayed short enough to walk, but long enough to swallow the truth for decades. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.